right, let me call to order the September 9th, 2019 meeting of the St. Louis Park School Board, District 283. First up is approval of the agenda. On the agenda, we have the superintendent's report, and then we have several discussion items. The first is curriculum review update math. The next is the preliminary 2019 Levy Payable 2020. Next is the school start update. We're bearing the lead. School started this week, last week. Next is the summer learning recap. And then we have policy development first readings, policies 414, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse, maltreatment of minors by school. Next is policy 415, mandated reporting of maltreatment of vulnerable adults, and then policy 506, student discipline. Then we have policy development second reading, policy 536, gender inclusion, policy 410, family and medical leave, and policy 413, harassment and violence. We will then hear the consent agenda and then the action agenda. On the action agenda, we have the Minnesota Department of Education IOWA resolution. We have interim Children First Executive Director contract, and then we have policy development approval of second reading of policies 536, gender inclusion, 410, family and medical leave, and 413, harassment and violence, followed by communications and transmittals, then adjournment. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Moved by Ann. Is there a second? Seconded by Karen. All in favor? Aye. Carries 6-0. First up is the superintendent's report.
All right. Good evening, Chair Gores, members of the board. This evening for my superintendent's report, I'll be pretty brief because during the school start update, I'll go into more detail, but I really just wanted I didn't want to do that. So go back to where I was at. Yeah. So for my superintendent's report, I just wanted to just express gratitude and thanks. And our Department of Communications and Community Relations took thousands of pictures during the start of the school year, and I felt like this one best summarized my feeling of gratitude. It's nothing like bubbles to make you happy, but as I think about the start of the school year, and one of the things I'm continually reminded of here in St. Louis Park is just the collective nature in which we approach the work that we do here. I have gratitude from everyone in our community, from members of Rotary to the neighbors that live around our schools, to the parents, the guardians, the community members, our staff, our students. You know, I've worked in several different school districts and in different schools, and I've never had a school start experience like I've had in St. Louis Park, and it's just simply because of the collective nature in which we really celebrate the start of the school year. So I just wanted to start off by saying thank you, and I'll spend some time going a little bit deeper into enrollment and facilities. I'm trying to think of several other topics later during my school start update. So thank you.
Thank you. And so first up, our discussion item is curriculum review update math. Patrick Duffy is our Director of Curriculum and Instruction, and we'll let him kick this off.
All right, good evening, Chair Gores, members of the board, Superintendent Osai. I am thrilled to be here tonight, and I want to underscore what Superintendent Osai just said about the collective nature of our work. We have had numerous teachers throughout the summer and the spring and moving into the fall working collaboratively to do whatever they can to improve their departmental work across the district through design teams. And tonight we have our pre-K-12 math design team who has come to share with you about a little bit of the work that they've been doing, as well as their vision and their plan for how to move us forward in the next phases of their work. Just to remind you, last year we started a new curriculum, instructional, and program review process. And in that process, we have 3 phases. The first phase really to have teachers engage in self and collective reflection about their own practices through a racially conscious lens. The second phase is really to examine practices around collaboration and instruction and look at ways to replicate the great things that are happening across our district and identify areas where we may need to find expertise from outside the district. And then the third phase is to develop a racial equity transformation plan that will be led by teachers alongside administrators and students, and will be for students to have an experience that is going to transform the way that they graduate from St. Louis Park. The 5 members of our math design team are here tonight. I'll just have them stand up briefly. They represent various schools. Go ahead, you can stand up. Jill Mettel from Peter Hobart Elementary, Liz Husing from the high school, F.A. Mensa Brown from the middle school, Illa Saxena from Susan Lindgren, and Maddie Wegleitner from the middle school. And I'm going to invite Maddie. Yes, they deserve applause. They have been doing incredible work, and although we have 3 design teams working right now, they have accelerated some of their work to the point of wanting to share where they're going with you tonight. So I'm going to invite Maddie Wegleitner up to share a little bit about the work. I do want to just say one last thing about this. The work that they are doing is to look at transforming our math experience for students pre-K-12. And you will notice in your notes as well as in this presentation that there's a heavy focus on middle school math, and that's by design. What we've talked about is how a healthy district often needs to have a healthy core, and at our core in the middle, what touches and connects both our elementary students and our high school students is our middle school. And this design team has had a vision about really looking and starting the work at the middle school and working outward. So you'll hear some of that tonight, and think about how that might impact all of our students. Here's Maddie.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for having us tonight. So I'm going to get started by describing the math design team and the work we've done so far, as Patrick said. And the way we've outlined this presentation is using Simon Sinek's Golden Circle. So we're going to first focus on the why and why we need a change. Next, we're going to talk about how we want to make that change, and finally, then what is our goal for that change. So our why really stems from our data. This data comes from the data advance that we got or went to this summer, looking at MCA scores. And I see lots of things when I look at this. I first see a state average of 55% and a school district average of around the same thing. I then notice a large racial achievement gap between our students of color and our white students. Looking at the elementary schools, I see many above state average and above district averages. Then we get to the middle school and we see a significant drop when we get to the middle school. That's when really we start segregating our classes and we start having more options but also differences in classes. Then we get to the high school and we're even more stratified with our classes there, and again we see another significant drop. And as a white female educator and leader, that's not something that I'm okay with, especially someone who works at the middle school. I've been the math department chair at the middle school for I think 5 years now, and we have done a lot of work to try and improve the experience for our students and improve achievement, and these numbers haven't changed. I've been going to the data retreat and data advance for years and they have looked the same. So that's really this big why of why we want to do something transformational and something different. Another reason why is these are our core values that are listed out in our mission and strategic plan. And the 3 that I don't believe we're currently living up to are everyone has equal intrinsic worth. By having advanced classes and grade level classes, are we really believing that? And then same with high expectations challenge everyone to high levels. Through persistent effort in an equitable environment, everyone can achieve maximum performance. And so from this, the math department 612 last year wrote this racial equity purpose statement. And it's something that we want to adopt as a math consulting team to really bring throughout the whole district, which is we believe that we can transform every mathematics class at St. Louis Park to mirror the racial demographics of the school. And we want all students to see themselves as mathematicians, regardless of race or background. So when we look at that why and we look at that data, we see and we worry about the kids who are not achieving. But with making this change, we also have to worry about the kids who are currently achieving in our system. So over the summer, our design team read multiple different books to kind of talk about what are our best practices right now. And from those books and that research, which one of the books was Joe Bowler's book called Mathematical Mindsets. The other one was Tracy Zager's book of Becoming the Math Teacher I Wish I Had. This is where we pulled a lot of this information that you're going to see in these next slides. So with this and with this change, as I said, we have to worry about our students as well who are currently achieving in our system. So the students who are often most negatively affected by the fixed mindset they receive when moving into tracks, like an advanced track and a grade level track, are those who are going into that top track. A quote out of Joe Buller's book says, "Although not the goal, the students most advantaged by heterogeneous grouping and complex instruction approach were the initial high achievers. They outperform students in the top tracks of neighboring schools." Additionally, we looked at what does IB say about tracking and having different classes at a grade level. And according to the IB Curriculum Development Report for Mathematics, extended math, which is what IB calls advanced math, is not something that's prescribed until years 4 and 5, which would be 9th grade and 10th grade. Additionally, we see that the most successful countries group by ability the latest and the least. It's no secret to us that the United States is not at the top of math achievement, although we want to be. Also, employers are seeking skills that are taught in these complex instruction classes. They're not just looking for kids who are getting an A in a math class, they're looking for kids who can work with different people in a group, who can hear multiple perspectives, who can problem solve and be creative with the math. And this detracking is happening in school districts in different parts of the nation, and detracking in New York City schools, school districts, middle schools, found that students enjoyed math more, took more advanced classes in high school, and passed the state test in New York a year earlier than students in top tracks. And these advantages span the spectrum of students. So I'm going to show you a brief, quick graph here that comes from Joe Buller's work. And what you'll see is when they, on the left is a traditionally tracked high school, and on the right is then one that they detracked. So
Can you just pause a minute and
Yes.
explain what you mean by tracked and not tracked?
yes, absolutely.
And detracking.
Can do. Sorry. So a tracked system is similar to what we have now. If you start on a track of advanced, you typically stay in a track of advanced. So right now at the middle school we have advanced math 6 and math 6, advanced math 7 and math 7, and like that. And so you'd stay in an advanced track, or you often stay. We offer right now options to move around, but that typically is not happening. So a detract would not offer tracks. There would be just one option of grade level math. There would be 6th grade math, 7th grade math, and 8th grade math, not 2 levels within each. So this research has showed if we stay with having advanced and grade level classes, initially you could see that the detracked schools had lower achievement at the pre-assessment of the first year. The post-assessment of that first year, they raised their scores some. But what was significant to me was the post-assessment after the second year, where you see a much higher achievement of all students. So then the other thing that we looked at was what are surrounding schools doing with tracking. And again, so currently at our middle school, we have a Math 6 and Advanced Math 6. We have at least 2 levels within each grade. So if we look at Edina, Hopkins, Robbinsdale, Minneapolis, and Wayzata, we see that similar in 6th and 7th grade, that there's just one class, one type of curriculum, one structure of class. When they get into 8th grade, some schools have 2 different options. Minnetonka, I've italicized them because of how large of a district they are. They do name their classes differently, but from speaking to teachers who work there, the curriculum for pre-algebra 6 and advanced pre-algebra 6 are really just still 6th grade math, 7th grade math, and 8th grade math. If it's called advanced, it's the same curriculum, it's just a year ahead. So what we're seeing here is that schools around us aren't as tracked as our current middle school is. So that's our big why we want to make a change to how our classes are structured at the middle school. So we know that this is going to take a lot of work from our constituents, meaning our staff, our students, and our community, to make this change. So now I'm going to start talking about our how. And we know that it's going to take some growth mindset work of our staff to see all of our students capable of learning at these high levels, which aligns with our current school improvement plan. The math department, for sure, we would like the whole department to take Joe Bowler's course, which is called Mathematical Mindsets, which lays out how to teach heterogeneous classes effectively through open tasks and complex instruction. We know we can't just go to a heterogeneous grouping and teach the way we've always taught. We need to make a change in how we're teaching as well. Our department chair has a release period every hour, and so the department chair would be spending that release, or sorry, not every hour, every day. So the department chair would be spending that release time working with teachers in classrooms to help achieve our goals. The way our schedule is set up currently is that there is a advanced class and a grade level class every hour of the day. And each teacher has this experience. So for example, I teach Math 7, FA teaches Advanced Math 7, we both teach that 4th hour. So what we want to start piloting is mixing our classes together, teaching a lesson, and seeing how it goes. During that time, we also want to have some action research around this. We want to include student voice around this of how that experience went and to talk about the changes. And we want to do this again multiple times so we can learn and grow from it. We also think with this change it'll be important to rename our math classes that we currently have so that it highlights the change. And additionally, we would want to offer a math elective. We don't have one outside of Math Lab right now, which is just a math study hall. So that'd be something else we would want to offer our students. And then once the change happens, we'd love for there to be a coaching for the first few years to make sure that we are making the changes to our teaching and our instruction to meet the needs of all of our learners in a heterogeneously grouped class. So we know it's important for our community to understand why this is an important change too. So we would like to do some growth mindset work with our community, and we have lots of ideas of doing that, and one would be through our newsletters that come out of the middle school weekly, which we call our Oriole Time News. We're interested in putting on a math night or nights. One idea we have is to do one like Math Then and Math Now. There's been a lot of press about Common Core math and math's changed and all those different things over the years, and we would like our community members to experience that. How is math different, math instruction and math learning, from a long time ago to where we are at today and what we are wanting class to be like, and to really see these changes as a positive for their students. We'd of course want to share the research that we're using, the changes to our course structure, and also we want to share that the skills employers are seeking will be taught through this class and this type of instruction as well. Also, preparing for high school, the skills that they learn in middle school are vital for success in high school. So we want to slow down and make sure our students are very successful in high school or in middle school so that they're better prepared for high school. And also we need to share that this does not take away opportunities at the high school. This wouldn't change any availability of a student to take an AP class or an IB class. And also we want to share some of the books that we've read with our community as well. We thought of the idea of maybe doing a community book read. Joe Bowler's written a book called What's Math Got to Do with It, which is written for not just educators, but community members and parents. And also we want to work on our students. We need to help our students to understand this how and why we need to make a change to the way courses are structured. So we want to do growth mindset work for all of our students so they understand the importance of that. We could do this through our advisory classes. Now at the middle school, we see our homeroom or advisory students daily, so there's lots of opportunities for this work. In our math classes, we started doing some math identity projects so we can understand where our students are at as mathematicians and then help them grow in their math identity through this. We want to be seeking student feedback throughout all of this time of, again, when we're piloting classes, when we're making changes to the way that we are teaching and the experiences students are having, then we want students to tell us how does that feel and what do they think about it? How is it different from things they've experienced before? We do that through surveys or different reflection questions. And really what we want our students is to feel more ways to be successful in class. I know that when I was going to school, I was successful in math class if I got the answer right. I want my students to feel successful in class if they are asking questions, rephrasing problems, explaining things well, being logical, justifying their work, considering answers, using manipulatives, drawing, like so many different ways that make you a mathematician than just getting the answer right. So finally, what would be our end product here? Our end product and our goal would be to have heterogeneous math classes taught through complex instruction. We then would have an open option for acceleration based on test scores. So currently, we do not have an open option for acceleration. There are pockets of students who accelerate a grade level, starting in 4th and 5th grade, and a few more in 6th grade, but then it kind of peters off after that. So we would like this to be something that's open to all students at any point in time throughout their math career. And we would need to have test scores or things to base this off from, but we need to determine what those are still, which again opens equal opportunities for all. This would allow for teaming to return to the middle school, and teaming meaning I, as the math teacher, would work with a social studies teacher, a language arts teacher, and a science teacher to share students and really to support that middle school model better. And what this would achieve is what Joe Bowler calls relational equity, where students value different insights, methods, and perspectives. And this just supports the international mindedness of our IB schools and philosophy, as well as the student integration, which we've heard from our racial equity transformation plans. So then, so that's our changes that we are hoping to bring about at the middle school level. And of course, our design team is built of more than just the middle school. We also have our elementary schools and the work we are focusing on there. And so right now, with that, we are going around to each elementary building and doing the best we can to introduce our team to all the teachers. And we have a survey that we designed to give to all teachers of math in the district. And we are doing that because we're trying to see where the mindset's at of our elementary school teachers and how close are they to achieving this goal that we have of our racial equity purpose and transforming our mathematical practices. So based on that survey, we're then going to kind of tailor what kind of mindset shifting work do we need to do before we purchase or look into new curriculum. Because we know that that's important, and we know a curriculum change may be coming, but we need to make sure we have the mindsets and the practices down first. Which then leads us into the racial equity transformation plan that Patrick talked about. And then finally, the high school. So we would like for this where we would start potentially with 6th grade being just 6th grade math and not having 6th grade math and advanced math 6. And then from there, having a trickle up and a trickle down effect within the following year, 7th grade, 8th grade, and then up into the high school of these math practices, so both up and down. We also see looking into things at the high school like leveled classes and acceleration, looking into gaps in proficiency, and then tying all of this into our racial equity transformation plan. And then once all of these things happen, we'll live in this super awesome world where everything's as happy and beautiful as duckies and bunnies. Do you have any questions? Or do you want me to ask these questions?
Well, combination of comment and question. Great job having this comprehensive long-range plan where we all live happily. I suspect there will be some skepticism at first, that the kids of higher ability will benefit most from this. I've already had some of that just from a couple of discussions I've had about this kind of idea. So it's great that you're thinking about all these community growth mindsets activities. I suspect you'll need them. I just wonder if you could just summarize maybe one more time why the kids of higher ability benefit from this arrangement, just kind of as a preview of some of that.
So currently the way students of higher ability typically see math is something that they can learn quickly and easily and not in depth. And that's what we valued in the system we have currently. Instead, what we would like our students of all levels, but our higher ability students too, is how they can learn deeply and work with other students to do that. So creative problem solving instead of just one right answer. So our students of higher ability would benefit by multiple perspectives of how to solve a problem, as well as those skills that they're needed for future employment, of how to work with different people as well.
Maddie, could you also just speak to the fact, in addition to the skills that they'll learn, the opportunities for grade level acceleration, which we currently don't have in this model, which may impact positively students of higher ability?
Thank you. Yes, I forgot about that piece too. Now, if any student is feeling like they would like to take a grade above class for acceleration, that is now open to any student.
Yeah, right now, as a part of this presentation, we use testing, but we're still open and exploring how we would determine which students would be eligible for grade level acceleration. So testing certainly could be one of the ways, but there may be other ways as well.
So yeah, I'd wondered what it meant when you said acceleration. And is that just instead of taking 6th grade math, I can take 7th grade math even though I'm in 6th grade because I've got 6th grade math covered?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
So it'd be considered a single subject acceleration, which is happening in pockets throughout our district, but it's not something that's advertised and open to everybody.
Okay, I want to go back to the bullet and the why, how, and then you had different numbers along the side. I wasn't quite clear what the percentages were. Could you explain those to me? Is it, I understand the 55.5% is Minnesota average, and then the 2.2. What are those?
Yeah, so what's in red and the first number is how we did in 2019 school year. So the state average was 55.5%, and that's down 2.5% from 2018. So the highlighted numbers, which are mostly negative and some positive, is the change from year to year.
Change from year to year.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful, thank you.
Yep.
So one thing that really troubles me, though, to focus just on MCA data is the state of Minnesota allows parents and students to opt out. Yet, by the same token, we're held responsible as a fail when a kid, by law, doesn't have to take the test. So I am troubled by looking at just the MCA data as a measurement because I don't believe it's an accurate picture of what's really happening in our students' experience of anything that is tested at MCA because not every kid is taking it and they don't have to. So how are you addressing that component as you analyze the data?
Yeah, so I don't know if I can answer this exactly, Karen, but I will say this. When we noticed at the data advance these numbers, this just became part of the why. The why is so much bigger than that. This is just one small piece of it. And I'm glad that you're reminding us to look at other things too. One of the things we could look at is who is taking what classes, how many students are enrolled in classes, and how are they doing in those classes. That would give us a more I guess, not just a one-time assessment of what's happening. So I think that's one thing. But for us, it was stark. Right in that one moment, it was a time when our group was kind of coalescing a little bit. And so this is just one piece of that why that was right in front of our faces in early August.
So I just want to say that this has been one of my favorite presentations that I have heard as a school board member since I have been on the board, because this is getting to the heart of what all of our jobs is how do we best help our students succeed, all of our students. And I'm thinking about how in the last 2 years at graduation, we have had 2 commencement speakers talk to us about why they, as a student of color, have been so isolated in their advanced classes. And I love that the work that you are doing is trying to answer that question and address that issue pretty early on. in our students' academic careers. And I'm so thrilled by that. And I actually don't have any questions. I just want to tell you how much I love you and how great this is, because what I particularly appreciate is how honest and vulnerable everybody is being about how you are all doing your jobs too, and what is working and what isn't. And Maddie, I especially appreciated when you said, and I'm sure you were speaking for your colleagues too, that you've been trying lots of things and you've been working really hard, and if you look at a lot of this data, it's not working. And so you are living our values in this district by taking risks and reevaluating what we're doing and not letting past practice dictate future activities. You are doing exactly, as a parent and as a board member, I'm so grateful for how deep you are going into this work and how honest and forthright you're being about what needs to be done. So continue, thank you, good luck. We're all counting on you.
You know, I could echo everything Mary said, but I'll say it differently. First, a suggestion. I think some parents feel like they can make a choice about what middle school to send their child to when they're in 4th grade or maybe in 3rd grade. They start to look at that, and they're really maybe considering 5th grade. So I think your growth work, I would just suggest reaching out to the elementary parents, maybe the PTOs. You're going to work with the teachers, but it would be helpful to figure out how we communicate with the parents at that earlier level when some of them anyway are assessing, what do I know about the middle school, all right? So just add that to your thoughts. I really believe that our goal is to challenge every child, to teach every child, to have growth for every child, and that we track our kids too soon. And I was reminded of that as I heard you talk about the middle school. I just can't imagine, how sad it is as a girl who grew up in schools, 50 years ago, to think, well, math isn't for me, because there was this real bias that existed then that maybe is gone now, maybe we're still working on it, about math and science are for boys and language is for girls. And I think we may have other implicit biases that exist. And so if I'm in a regular math class, that kind of reinforces that cultural bias I'm already getting, whereas if I'm in a math class with everybody, and I'm being challenged at whatever learning level I'm on, which I think is important for every student, and to speak to Jim's, comment, I think we can be okay as long as we're communicating that, as long as you're doing what you said, the training that teaches the teachers to teach everybody at their level, which is harder, maybe, don't know, not a teacher, and that we have that great acceleration option. I think we can meet everybody's needs, but we need to work on it and we need to communicate it, and I'm really glad you're on this track on this detracking track for doing this. So Maddie and all of you, I want to thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm very grateful for all of you for being here. And this is a very specific question, but it's as I think about sort of making this case. Right now, what's like the difference? How would you encapsulate the difference between a 6th grade advanced and a 6th grade regular math class? And how would that look different in this?
So that's a great question, and currently that is something that we are continuously having conversations about at the middle school. Last year we did do a big review of all our advanced curriculum to try and increase the rigor in all of the classes and increase that challenge. That being said, they look pretty similar to one another. The biggest things that we've realized, so I teach both advanced and grade level, the biggest things that I've realized are that some of the support that students in our grade level classes need are the same supports that students in our advanced classes need, and vice versa. So that what ends up happening is that we end up doing the same things. So there isn't a lot of difference there, and so with this, what we're hoping to see is that we're raising that, those expectations and that rigor for all our students. So it's not that the expectation is just with that one group, that expectation is there with all our students.
And I want to say I really enjoy all of what you guys said, and I'm excited to see the what's going to happen. I really feel that there's going to be great movements in the numbers if we can get the kids to take the test, but great movements in the numbers, and I think they're going to enjoy their time in math a lot more than what they had in the past. So I think what you're proposing is that all kids come in the 6th grade at A level, they go there until they can basically test out of it, and then they do advanced kind of accelerated math? Is that what it is?
So what we're proposing is when students register for 6th grade, they can register for Math 6, or they have an option for acceleration into Math 7. And if they want to accelerate, then they'll go through whatever process we determine to see whether or not they are ready to go on to Math 7. So essentially then what would happen at the middle school is we'd have Math 6, Math 7, Math 8, and we would still have what we currently have, which is geometry for our 8th grade students who are 1 year ahead.
And in that testing, just caution to the wind, in that testing, I just make it so that it's a level playing field for everybody in that testing, and that the classes on the advances can take everybody that actually make it into that class. So just so that we don't have any issues. Thank you.
I want to thank all of you. This is a wonderful presentation and great work that you're doing, and we are really grateful. So thank you.
Thank you.
So next up, we have the preliminary 2019 Levy Payable presentation by Patricia Magnuson, our Director of Business Services. She'll kick it off.
Good evening, Chair Gores, Superintendent Osai, and board members. I'm going to talk a little bit in a big picture about the preliminary tax levy for taxes payable in 2020. We're going to talk at a really high level tonight. When we come back on September 23rd to actually take action on this preliminary levy, we'll have a lot more detail. This document, I might be the only one that finds it really interesting, but what I want to help you understand is what it looks like is going to happen with our tax rates. So the Department of Education released the tax levy on Friday, and we've started to take some preliminary looks at the impact for the school taxes for St. Louis Park Public Schools School District. And it looks as though tax rates will be declining. We're going to go through a lot of edits over the next couple of weeks, and we'll have more detailed information in 2 weeks. But I want to just take you through how a tax rate is established so you can start to see why we're thinking that. I'm going to just start by going down to the bottom of this sheet. If you can see, that little, where it says key ideas, the tax rate is just a formula. The numerator is how much is the dollar tax levy for the school district. And that dollar levy is, I would say, hundreds of formulas that make up the dollar amount in all kinds of specific categories of funding. The denominator of that formula is the valuation of the entire district. So we take the numerator and divide by the denominator, and a tax rate appears. And then that tax rate is applied to every specific parcel of property in the school district. So if you start at the top of this, the third line down, you can see that the total tax levy at this time looks like it will go up by $689,496, about 2.12%. So there's lots of detailed line items in that. Some of the reasons the tax levy is increasing is that we have included some new things in the levy. One of them is a levy for other post-employment benefits. It's a pay-as-you-go levy to help us fund the ongoing costs of post-employment benefits that are now written out of contracts. Another change in the levy is that we are including some capacity to add a turf field in the interior of the track at the high school. We'll go through a detailed presentation about that. Those are a couple of things that are happening with the levy. Of course, there's other things that are just built into formulas and voter approval, such as there's an increase in the technology levy that's linked to the growing tax capacity. That's part of the reason the dollar levy is going up. So there's lots of details which we will go through line by line on September 23rd. So that's the numerator, going up at a pace of 2.12%. The denominator is made up of the growing valuation of the entire properties of the school district. And there's two types of valuations. One's a market value and one's a tax capacity valuation. And if you can see the number 8.12% and 9.13%, by either measure, the growth of the value of properties in St. Louis Park is rising at a faster pace than the tax levy. So what that tells you, our math teacher should have stayed to help us with this, that the numerator is growing at 2%, denominators are growing at 8 or 9%, that's, the tax rate's going to go down. So, so we'll start to talk about that on September 23rd, and I'll give you more detailed information. I just want to talk about the timeline about how this information gets to our individual taxpayers and how they can talk to us about it. So on September 23rd, in 2 weeks, we will have time to have read through every line item of the levy. At that time, the board will approve the preliminary levy at maximum, which means that what the formulas provide, we will levy at. And what that does is sets in motion a series of events. So then, as staff, we certify the preliminary levy to Hennepin County and the Department of Education. Then Hennepin County turns around and prepares parcel-specific notices. So every taxpayer, every property owner will receive a parcel-specific notice that tells them this is the impact on your property. Right now, we believe that there could be reduced taxes for some property owners, but depending on the valuation of that specific parcel, if its individual value is rising faster, taxes may go up on a property like that. So the parcel-specific notices go out so that taxpayers have a chance to call me, call board members, and then attend on December 9th our Truth in Taxation meeting that's held just prior to the board meeting. I think it's at 6:30 that evening. And that evening, the board will certify the final levy, which then will be turned into the property taxes for the school district portion for taxes, property taxes that are paid in 2020. So that's the preliminary information we have and next steps for that. I do want to now go back to one of the increasing line items. We think it's about $10 on a $250,000 home, and you'll see more about that. But one of the items that we want to make an improvement on in the school district that has an impact on our tax levy is the addition of a turf field on the interior of our track. And I'll have Andy Ewald, who is our athletic director, go through some details about that.
Good evening. So 9 years ago, we started having discussion about doing a synthetic field inside at the stadium. And at that time, we talked about it. We had 3 fields, and the stadium was vastly underused. The field inside the track was very overused. And then we had a piece of green space next to the activity center at the high school that was used for small activities. We've been on the stadium field for 7 years now. It's been wonderful. It's increased the use. Prior to it being a synthetic field, I believe we used it for 48, 49, 50 hours a year, and that was varsity contests, that was graduation, and that was the only thing that happened out there. Now you have Phy-Ed classes out there, you have community ed use, you have adult use, you have practices, graduation is still out there, so it's getting the use that 9 years ago when we first started having the discussion that we kind of visioned for that space when we went to an artificial field on it. We're talking about the field inside the track, and that's the exact opposite. It's for years been overused. to the point where even this fall, we've had to stay off of it for practices that were scheduled because of the weather and not wanting to totally ruin that field. Let me see here. So there's a picture of the stadium field. There's the inside of the track. There's another picture inside the track, and I'll say this, that it looks very green. A lot of that is it's got quite a bit of weeds out there, and as we all know, weeds are going to stay greener longer than our grass. One of the other issues with it is it's not very well graded. It's not very level. The crown that at one point was in the middle of the field has virtually gone away. So now rather than water running off of it to stormwater drains, it literally just puddles on the field and damages it as well. The green space that was adjacent to the activity center is pretty much gone now. There's a picture of it as construction has started on the new fitness center. So the new fitness center coupled with in some point down the road, the expansion of the Circle parking lot, that green space, even as a small group area to be able to use, it will be non-existent. So as a school, we'll be down to 2 fields to use, the stadium and then the practice field inside the track. To me, it's really a thing of, it's not trying to keep up with anybody at this point. The slide that's up there now shows the neighbors around us and the number of turf fields that they have or grass fields that they have. It's really that we're landlocked, and to me, it really comes down to how can we best use what we do have. We're not going to gain any green space around here. Our high school campus is what it is, so how can we best use the space that we have now? We don't have community groups going out, for the most part, on the field inside the track just because it's not a very good quality surface. So they're not going to rent it as a place to use when it's subpar. So again, to me, it's really about using the space that we have the best we can.
I want to talk a little bit about the project itself. One of the reasons the timing makes sense for us is that as a part of our long-term facilities maintenance projects, we're replacing the track next year. So we're in there tearing out the track, and so it'd be an opportune time. The problems with the field, as Andy talked about, have us in a position that we need to do something pretty drastic, even if it were to remain a grass field. So we'd have to make some sort of significant investment and tear up that field. So it makes it an opportune time to do it in conjunction with that track replacement next year, and then do something that will help our students with safety and access to the field, and hopefully expand community access to the field. The project costs we are estimating at $2,250,000, and the way we would fund that is with a lease purchase. So we'd go to a bank and get a 10-year loan from a bank, and we'd pay that back in a principal and interest payment every year, and that's how it impacts taxes. So that principal and interest payment is paid back via lease levy. It's a really common way that school districts fund turf fields. In fact, we funded our stadium field in that same way. And right now, we believe the tax impact to be $10 a year on a $250,000 home. And so this is what the next steps for this project would look like. So on September 23rd, if the board wishes, we will keep this idea, that $300,000 principal and interest payment in the lease levy that is included in our preliminary levy, and then as a part of our parcel-specific notices that go out in November. And then that would be included in the levy. That doesn't mean we have to do the project. That means we have funding once we decide to do the project. Then once that's locked in, we can, in earnest, begin with design development in December. In January or February, we would seek bids for the financing. So we'd get bids from different banks for the lease purchase. We'd complete our plan review with the city and finalize the budget so that we could go out and seek bids in March. And then as soon as track season is over, we get in June and start construction on the track and this field with an expected completion time of end of October of 2020.
When we see this again, it would be just helpful to have sort of just an opportunity cost run of what it would look like to, you mentioned significant work would have to be done to the grass field, like over 10 years. So what that work would be plus the $30,000 we're hearing from annual maintenance versus the turf field. Just one little quick thing that I wanted to hear. And then, Patricia, can we go back to the very first slide on the tax rate? This is not about the, I mean,
the
it's
other,
about the,
this
yeah,
one?
that one.
Mhm.
And so I just want to make sure that I'm hearing what you're saying and including the field proposal in this. The takeaway kind of is that when you have, tell me if I'm saying this right, if you have the denominator that is growing faster than the numerator by the amount that we have, then unless your home is growing faster than the average, that your home value is growing faster than the average home value, then your tax rate, your tax bill in dollars is going to go down.
It will likely go down.
Even with the turf field.
Yes, the turf is included in the numerator here.
We had a special meeting with both Patricia and Andy for an hour before this meeting, so we had a lot of opportunity to ask questions and explore what we heard then. And so I just want to thank you for this presentation. I really am struck by how with two fields in a landlocked community, one of the ways to maximize the use of those fields for our students and our community is the idea of having the track field become another artificial field. And so I really want to thank you for doing the analysis of that, on that, and bringing that forward to us, and we'll look forward to hearing more as we continue to discuss that. So thank you.
Thank you.
So, back to the lead, which we've buried, which we started out with the superintendent's report. Now we're going to talk a little bit more about this, and it's the school start update.
Good evening, Chair Gores, members of the board. This evening for the school start update, I just want to share some high-level information regarding the start of the school year and take an opportunity to answer any questions that you may have about the start. And where I want to start for the purpose of our time together this evening is with our back-to-school kickoff. And I would be remiss if I didn't say that, you know, when school ends and the summer starts, it's not like, you know, we just start planning for, you know, welcoming staff back. You know, last school year we started in, I believe it was maybe even March, planning for the upcoming school year. And this year, recognizing all of the things that will need to be done, we're talking about starting in January. So there was a tremendous amount of work that went into preparing and planning for welcoming staff back this fall. And we really focused in most of our time and energy around this central theme of Ubuntu, which is a South African term that is loosely translated into I am because we are. And with that concept, there are really four major principles that truly guided our work together over the summer and will really accelerate our work into the school year. And those principles are less is more, this notion of selflessness, trust, and collectivism. And I talked a little bit about that as I was referencing and talking about during my superintendent's report, just the gratitude that I had for the collective nature of our community. And our back to school kickoff was certainly the same thing. You know, on the screen you see an image of the Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, who spent time addressing our staff and really speaking about the impact that St. Louis Park Public Schools had on her as a student and how that has impacted her today as the Lieutenant Governor. But we started the day with you know, one of our very own board members here, Director Ann Casey, who did a phenomenal job really setting the tone and the foundation. I said to Ann after she spoke that I couldn't have written that better myself. So it was tremendous because it was definitely connected to everything that was necessary for staff to have the foundation to truly learn and be engaged throughout the day. As a part of this kickoff, we brought in Anthony Galloway with Arts Us, and he connected to the theme through his own lived experience and how it took the community to really help and support him. And what was phenomenal about that is that it wasn't just your traditional classroom teacher. One of the things that we're really working hard here on St. Louis Park is making sure that every single staff person understands that they play a role in making sure that our students actualize the mission. So as Anthony told his story, it was beautiful because he talked about the number of different people, and maybe one of them was a classroom teacher, you know, and it's extremely important as we continue to do our work here in St. Louis Park that our nutritious service staff, our clerical staff, our custodians, anyone that works here, they recognize their role in positively impacting student achievement. One of the pieces that I want to just take a moment and share with you, we sent out a survey as we always do, and we're very responsive to the surveys that we do here because we recognize that in order for us to best meet the needs of our learners, that we have to hear what it is that they need and be responsive to that. So as part of that, we ask that staff take time to reflect on their experience and provide us feedback. And I'll just read a couple of the things that people are sharing. You're probably wondering, well, of course you picked the good things, but I would be more than happy to share the entire survey with you because, you know, I'm actually surprised how positive and favorable it was about the work that we did. But one staff person said, one of the things that they reflected on is that I'm not an island doing this work alone. We are a community working towards helping each child be successful together. My students will grow up to share a story about me, and it's up to me to guide what that story will be. So our staff, you know, were really reflective about what they heard and recognize that every single interaction that they have on the student's with the student, that student holds with them and it impacts them later in life. Another staff person said that our jobs are important. We need to see and know the brilliance of each of our students so we can draw it out of them. We collectively can and will majorly impact the lives of our students, and it's up to us to make sure it's all for the good in the end, right? So that notion of collective came out in some of the reflections of our staff as well. So what I'll end with is that it was probably by far one of the most powerful back to school kickoffs I've ever been a part of. And the reason that was the case was because of the intentionality that occurred. You know, we front loaded a lot of the work that we wanted to do on this day with leaders in the summer and in the spring so that they would be sending those messages to their staff before staff ever came back as a whole on the 27th, and it truly paid off. We saw that in our interactions and in the way that people were internalizing the messages that we were communicating with them. Day one is by far, and I talked a little bit about this, but one of my favorite days here in St. Louis Park Public Schools. And I talked a little bit about just the collective nature of how the community comes together to support the needs of all of our learners. And it reminded me of one of our core values that state that hopes and dreams inspire and motivate people to invest in themselves and their community. And day one is such a perfect example of that because you see so many people coming out that may have children in school and that may not have children in school, right? And they come out, but they come out and invest in our school district to make sure that students have a successful start because of the hopes and dreams that they have for not only St. Louis Park, not only Minnesota, but for the democracy of this country, recognizing that education is such a critical part. And I would say that I had a chance to be at every single site on day one, and I want to thank each of you. I saw many of you at everywhere I was at. I was like, oh my goodness, are you following me, or what are you checking to see if I'm doing my job? But most of the places I saw you there as well, and thank you for contributing and really creating a welcoming environment for our students on their first day back to school. One of the pieces that, as a school community, is somewhat understated, but I would suggest is a critical component to the success of any school is taking the necessary time at the beginning of the year to truly build community. So during the first week of school, I spent the majority of my time in and out of classrooms and in and out of buildings, and one of the consistent things I saw in every single classroom and every single building I was in were staff intentionally building relationships and communities with their students. Even if it was as simple as what name would you prefer that I call you, or what pronoun would you prefer that I use, or how we're going to interact with one another in our classroom community. I saw that in every place, and I I appreciate our staff for doing that, because in order for us to, you've probably heard the saying, you must go slow to go fast. In order for us to truly go fast and do some of the things that you heard our math teachers talking about this evening, a strong foundation and community has to be present. Students have to feel safe. And what we recognize here in St. Louis Park is that when we create those safe and nurturing environments, that it energizes and enhances our students' spirits. I won't go into great depth about enrollment today, because coming up here in October, we'll do a very comprehensive enrollment report. But I do want to share with you that our kindergarten class is the largest kindergarten class that we've had in the past 6 years. And right now, our kindergarten class is the largest class that we have, K-12, with 404 students. So that's a tremendous accomplishment for us here in St. Louis Park. As we've looked at the Hennepin County birth rates, we've seen over the past several years that those birth rates are going back up, and we're extremely excited that we're capturing a higher percentage of those kindergartners. And I'm doing my part. I'll have another one coming here pretty soon, but that'll be it for me, at least. I can't offer anything else. But I'm certainly excited about this. And the key for us is it's one thing to get them here, but it's also important that we keep them all the way through, right? So as we continue to create more effective and engaging learning environments and supportive and welcoming spaces, I'm confident that we'll see this trend continue, because as we look at the Hennepin County birth records, our rates, we're seeing that in this area, rates are going up. And just recently, and I know Ann did a tremendous job reporting about this at our last board meeting, but the state demographer also had some data and news that would bode pretty favorably for suburbs like St. Louis Park and other first ring suburbs. It was no small feat that we were able to open our doors when staff came back in for 99.8% have facilities in the place that they were, so that staff could come back and be prepared to welcome students. And I'm thankful for every single person that contributed to making that happen. I know that people worked long weekends and long nights and did whatever it took to make sure that the spaces were available. And I was at many of the back to school nights. I went around, particularly I spent time at Aquila, and I attempted to spend time that evening at PSI, but the parking was all the way down by, I can't remember the church off of Cedar Lake Road. Long story short, it was extremely hard to get in there. But as I've talked to parents and community members and guardians about these facilities and spaces, they are over the moon excited and thankful. And as they're expressing their excitement to me, I'm expressing my excitement to them. And thanks for, a couple of years ago, voting and approving that $100.9 million bond referendum, because it's allowed us to create these learning environments that are going to truly help us engage and accelerate student learning. So we are in the works of planning a community event in which we'll open up spaces and the community can come in and see some of our new spaces. I'm probably going to say too much, and I can see some of my cabinet colleagues giving me daggers because I'm probably talking before we have all of this planned, but you can liken it to like a parade of homes tour, right? A parade of schools. It's in the works, but we're going to be creating an opportunity here in the very near future for the community to get in and see the spaces as well. The last piece that I just want to mention, and again, there are so many other pieces that I could connect to as it relates to the start of the school year, but I wanted to bring this piece up just simply because this fall, our teams have had tremendous success. And our athletic director, Andy Ewald, was here a few minutes ago, and he was talking a little bit about facilities and fields. And one of the pieces that he's been doing for the last couple of years is some required leadership training for captains and other people that lead our teams. And I've just been thrilled and excited about just how successful they've been. Our volleyball team is undefeated this year, and tomorrow night we'll be participating against Hopkins in what is like the Star Tribune's game of the week. Our boys soccer team, I believe, is ranked 3rd in state. They're undefeated. Our girls soccer team is going strong. We have extremely great participation this year in fall athletics, so we continue to see more and more students, right, find pathways to excellence outside of the classroom. And just on Friday, our football team went out to Waconia and beat, I think they were the number 4 team ranked in the state and hadn't lost at home, and maybe they've lost twice in 3 years, right? So there are some great things happening, and and I believe it all comes back to the type of environment we're creating for our students in our schools and our community. So that concludes my report for this evening. And as I was saying, I could go on and on because there's so many great things, but I just want to provide a highlight and snapshot of many of the great things that have occurred since we've started school. Any questions?
Aston, we could let you go on and on because we love listening to it. It was just wonderful. You know, Ken and I took a tour of a couple of the new Park Spanish Immersion, as I'm calling it these days, and then some of the changes at the high school before they were finalized. So I got to get back and see the final product. But I just want to say that it's really exciting, and I've heard from people at Park Spanish Immersion how excited they are. And granted, on any big project, there are some punch list items and some little tweaks, and some in a new building, there's some new kinks to work out as you figure out how to go do the work. But massive excitement. So I just want to thank everybody for the good work that's been done.
Yeah, thank you for that. You know, and it's the simple things. I think back to the Susan Lindgren open house and the sheer excitement. I should have put that picture up here, but to have almost 500 kids on the playground, you know, having the time of their life, right? And, you know, so it's those types of things that truly create the excitement and engagement that draw people to our school. So again, none of that would be possible if it weren't for the support of our residents and all of the $100.9 million that they approved a couple of years ago. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. So next up is the summer learning recap. Lisa Green is Director of Community Education. She's working her way up there.
Good evening, Chair Gores, Superintendent Masai, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me to come and talk about the great things we had going on in our schools this summer. And I'm going to be doing just a high-level overview of all of the programs that we had in our schools. So first of all, I do want to talk about our summer breakfast and lunch program. This year, the sites were Peter Hobart and the middle school, and it was during the Summer Learning Academy days, breakfast and lunch. And then Central, again, was our main site. It was open from June 12th through August 16th, Monday through Friday, and closed July 4th. And that site is where most of we serve our Kids Place kids there, but then that site also serves like a lot of members of the community too, kids under 18 years old who want to come in and have breakfast or lunch. And we served, in June, we served 937 breakfasts, 1,851 lunches. July, which was our full month, 3 weeks at Peter Hobart in the middle school because they take the week of July 4th off, but that was 1,609 breakfasts and 3,290 lunches. And August, which only Central was open in August, we had 1,029 breakfasts and 1,934 lunches. So we did get a lot of kids fed this summer through our breakfast and lunch program. At Peter Hobart, we had our K-5 Summer Learning Academy. It's been held at Aquila for years and years. But Aquila was under construction this summer, so we moved it over to Peter Hobart, and that went very well. We might be looking at moving it around more often rather than just keeping it at one school. We'll have to see. This program is funded through targeted services money, so students have to be identified by their teachers or based on assessments to be in the program. The focus is on math and reading. And this summer, they were able to, again, with a partnership, they were able to distribute the Sheridan Story food bags again this summer. At the middle school, we had our 6 through 8 Summer Learning Academy program, and it is the same dates and times as the K through 5 program because, they share, and they share transportation. So that too was funded through targeted services, so it's students who have been identified and with a focus on reading and math. But Lil Zumberg sent a really nice report of all the different things that they did this summer. One that really stood out for me was 6th grade math teacher Michelle Stark, who led and supported all math instruction, created an amazing excursion experience for the students. And for this, she brought in several guest speakers to share how they use math in their professions. And of course, Superintendent Osai was one of those speakers, but there were a number of them. And I couldn't help but think when I read that if this had happened decades ago when I was in junior high or high school, if perhaps somebody might have made the connection to me, how math is relevant to our daily life, I might have been way more interested in math than I actually was. At our high school, we have credit recovery and independent study with Plato, where students can make up credits that they missed during the year. We had about 125 students participate in that. And one of the things that they're starting to do this year is actually doing more connecting with parents and working with parents to support the student. Because what happens in this program is the students will start to come, but then they quit coming. And so they don't get their credit. And so we really want them to get their credit, and of course their parents want them to get their credit too. So they worked with some parents to, like in one case, Omar Adams, who was the coordinator of this program, would text one student's parent every day when the student arrived. So the parents knew that the student was there. And so this summer, for the first time, he earned a number of credits that he needed to make up. And the parent was just really appreciative of that and said that really helped them when they all worked together like that to make this happen for that student. Another student earned his first credit ever in summer school after working in the past and not receiving a credit. He started with similar habits as previous years, but then they called home and they collaborated with his father, and they devised a plan and executed it with success. So they're finding if they, really reaching out to the parents is very helpful. Peter Hobart had a number of programs this summer. They again participated in Basketball in the Park, which is a partnership with the St. Louis Park Police and Perspectives. It's held at Ainsworth Park. It was May 30th through August 1st, and this is where Peter Hobart teachers and staff will go to Ainsworth on Basketball in the Park night and meet with the students and families and do games with them or read or give out books and things like that. So it's a really nice partnership, and it shows the families how much our teachers care about their children and families. They also did something this year which is new called Breakfast with Summer Learning Academy. And teachers would just go to Summer Learning Academy and have breakfast with the kids. And that was what they did. And it just showed that they're just trying to build on those relationships and show the students that they care. And one of the things that we've been learning through gaining student voice here is that the one thing that students really want is they just want to know that the adults care about them. And so this was a great way to show that. Their teachers showed up and show that they cared. I don't know what's happening with sorry about that, covered up some words there. They also did something called Lunch Bunch, which was a partnership with the St. Louis Park Recreation Department. Park and Rec has their park programs around the city, and they have one at Peter Hobart. And so on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they did literacy activities with students, and on Mondays and Wednesdays, they did STEM activities where they worked in gardening, composting, and things like that. Community education, summer learning and play are week-long camp programs. This year, we held them at Peter Hobart and the middle school this year. And holding it at Peter Hobart was, was really nice because we, as you know, over the years, we've really been building a partnership with Summer Learning Academy, where the students in Summer Learning Academy can take selected community ed classes for free. And in the past, we've done it like the weeks before the program or the weeks after the program. Last year we changed it, we did most of our summer camps in the afternoon so that summer learning and play students could go there after school, but they were still summer learning and play was still at PSI, so they had to take a bus. This year, they were at Peter Hobart at the same site. So all they did is they just, the students who participated, which there were 74 of them who participated, were just able to walk down the hall, have lunch, and then go to our community ed classes. So we had nearly 300 students participating. 74, like I said, were targeted services, and we had 125 students participating in programs at the middle school. One great thing from this summer that Daryl shared with me is that toward the end of the program, at the beginning of one of the weeks, a mom came in with her first grader. She was from Minneapolis, and she felt really nervous about leaving her child there and taking chess class. And she wanted to stay with the child. Well, Daryl, like he says, he believes in points of contact, and he tries to greet every parent as they come in. And he could see that this mom was really nervous about it. So he said, well, why don't we let him go to class, and then in a little bit you can go down there and watch him. So she did, and this was then the first day, and the little boy didn't even notice that she was there, and then she said something, and he turned around, looked at her, and just went back to playing his chess game with whoever he was playing with. And so she felt very comfortable that he was in good hands. And at the end of the week, she came by to greet the staff and gave them a gift and thanked them for making her child feel so welcome in the program. And of course, there's Kids Place, which is our longest program of the summer. It is our child care program for working families, and it went from June 17th through August 23rd this year. Of course, oops, let me see. Well, I had a blog, but it fell off of here. I'm sorry. It's like, I don't know, something happened when it went to Google, but I was going to show you the Kids Place blog. Every week they sent out a blog to parents with all of the activities that they did. And I wasn't going to show you the whole thing, but I was going to show you some of the photos. They did so many things this year, as they always do. They have field trips all the time. The kids just love the program. Parents love the program because the kids love the program. And so I really wished I could have showed you that, but I just don't know what happened to it. And, wait a minute. No. Okay. And of course, lastly, we have a number of other community education offerings that go on all summer long. Our enrichment programs of kid dance, gymnastics, aquatics. We had early childhood family education classes this summer. Our early learning preschool, and early learning camps, which is something new we did this summer, and of course fencing, karate, ADHD, focus coaching, etc. Any questions?
I had one question. Moving to Peter Hobart for the summer program from Aquila, did your numbers stay the same or go up, down? Change at all?
The numbers, I didn't bring that particular report. The numbers look to be a little bit lower this year than last year, if I'm remembering correctly. But they have been going down little by little every year. So I really don't know what that's all about. But I don't know that if they did go down, if that could be attributed to it being at Peter Hobart. Because we do have busing, we have transportation for all students.
Lisa, thanks. That was just a great report, and I particularly like the stories that you blended into the report because they made it come alive for me, and they emphasized what we know to be true, which is we have great students and great staff.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you.
Thank you.
So next up, we have policy development, and we're doing a first reading of policy, and there are 3 policies here. Policy 414, mandated reporting of child neglect or physical or sexual abuse, maltreatment of minors by school. Policy 415, mandated reporting of maltreatment of vulnerable adults. And Policy 506, student discipline. As I looked at what was provided, it appeared to me that there are no suggested changes by the MSBA or the administration. Is that true?
Yes, that is correct.
Thank you, Flower. Is there anything else that we need to be informed about before we open up our discussion?
Does that also mean they match the MSBA suggested policy exactly?
I can respond to that. So they would match to the extent that the school board did not make further modifications. So whenever there are MSBA recommendations, we bring that to the board, and then the board chooses which of those recommendations that they want to accept or not. So to answer your question, yes, to the extent that the board did not make any modifications. If you would like, we can bring it back with the second reading with any differences between the current MSBA recommendations and what we have present. But I'm pretty confident that they're pretty close. It's just some language pieces here or there, particularly if there are any things that that create binary situations with gender and other pieces. We've adopted those.
So Jim, there might be some changes that prior boards have adopted over the time, but none of these are MSBA suggested changes now.
I think it's fine for these policies. I mean, they all look good. You don't need to do any work. But I wonder in the future, though, if there are just like minor changes from the MSBA suggested, it would be a lot of work to highlight them. But just for a future idea. I don't know.
So you want highlighted changes that the board has made in the past to policies? Why don't you think about that? Because that might involve more work than we need to have the staff doing, and I just would invite you to think about that. Yeah.
Yeah, I will think about it a little bit more. Sometimes I think it'd be nice to have the history of some of these policies and how they've changed, but I don't want to create a lot of work. So I'll give that some thought.
Thanks, Jim. Anybody have any, I'm just going to take them quickly one at a time. Anybody have any comments on policy 414? Good.
Not to conflate the two policies, but both policies, 414 and 415, have references to training of our staff on how to handle some of the issues that might come up. And I was hoping that Superintendent Osai could speak to what we do to train staff and how we might refresh that training from time to time.
Absolutely. Annually, we have what is called Safe Schools Training, and Rick, our Director of Human Resources, can speak about this further, but staff are required to go through training annually. These are items that are a part of that training, and there are several different modules. In order for staff have to answer, I think it's 80% of the questions correct connected to each module in order to receive a passing score, and the staff staff members have to continue to take this training until they demonstrate I guess proficiency. I don't know if 80% is proficiency, but at least until they demonstrate that they've completed and answered correctly the required number of questions. Now, what I don't know is that if we're tracking, if we see a staff member struggling with a particular policy, how we follow up to maybe provide them additional support. Is there anything that you would like to add to that?
Thank you.
Any other comments on 414? Any other comments on 415? Any other comments on 506? Okay, this is a first reading in the, no.
It's on 506.
Thanks, Ann, go ahead.
We do have procedures that go along with 506, right? That are not here. I realize that our policy is the policy and the procedures, but it might be good just to revisit or just to have them as a reference, since they are noted in the policy.
So for the next go-round, we'll have both the policy and the procedures to take a look at, sure.
No, it might be related to that, but on our page 61, under consequences, there's a point where it says asterisk is defined as something else, and it's a little confusing what they're even referring to there.
Well, when we add the procedure, that will make more sense, because on the procedure, there are some infractions that have an asterisk next to it, which I believe is what you're referring to. So when we come back around for a second reading, we'll add the procedures.
All right, then we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is policy development. Second reading of policies 536, gender inclusion, 410, family and medical leave, and 413, harassment and violence. Any comments on any of these policies? All right, I'll move on to the consent agenda. Anybody want to pull anything off the consent agenda, which is like the minutes? I would just note that, Karen, are you the liaison to Park Spanish Immersion? Yes. Okay, so we could make that correction to the minutes, that would be good. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
That's moved by Jim. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded is by Mary. All in favor? Aye. Carries 6-0. Next up is the action agenda. So the first item on the action agenda involves Minnesota Department of Education Iowa resolution. And is it fair to say, Aspen, everything we need to know is contained here in the agenda? Okay, then I'll just read this proposal. It is recommended that the school board approve the resolution to designate Superintendent Aston Osai as the identified official with authority, Iowa, and Flower Krutina as the Iowa, to add and remove names only for the MDE External User Access Recertification System. The Minnesota Department of Education, MDE, requires that the school districts annually designate an identified official with authority to comply with the MNIT Enterprise Identity and Access Management Standard, which states that all user access rights to Minnesota state systems must be reviewed and recertified at least annually. The identified official with authority will assign job duties and authorize external users access to MDE secure systems for their local education agency, LEA. The board recommends to authorize Aston Osai to act as the identified official with authority, Iowa, and Flower Cortina to act as the Iowa to add and remove names only for St. Louis Park Public School District 283. Is there a motion to approve this resolution as presented? It's moved by Ann and it's seconded by Karen. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Carries 6-0. Next up, we have the Interim Children First Executive Director contract. It is recommended that the school board approve the agreement for St. Louis Park Public Schools to serve as the dispersing agent for the salary from Children First for Deborah Wells in the capacity of Interim Children's First Executive Director. Rick? Jim?
Could you clarify the relationship of the position? She's not our employee, is she? Everyone like that, she's still agent, or what exactly, how does that work?
As a technical matter, she's our employee because she's on our payroll. We issue W-2s and all of the tax returns. We do full deduction tax. We then charge back that cost to the service.
And I see that the interim director that the interim Children's First Executive Director position here is a half-time position, and that our materials provide that it's a half-time salary that's being refunded. I mean, we're getting fully compensated for whatever checks we're writing for her.
Correct. It's fully funded. We're just a pass-through for the payroll.
All right. Is there a motion to approve the interim Children First Executive Director contract? Moved by Karen, seconded by Ken. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, carries 6-0. Next up, we have policy development, approval of second reading of policies 536, gender inclusion, 410, family medical leave, and 413, harassment and violence. It is recommended that the school board approve the second readings of policies 536, 410, and 413 as presented. Is there a motion? Moved by Mary. Is there a second? Seconded by Ken. Is there any discussion? I would simply note that we had a report last time about how we're doing implementing our first year of the 536 gender inclusion policy. So if anyone's interested in that, go back to our last meeting. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carries 6-0. Next up, we have communications and transmittals. Who would like to go first? Go ahead, Ann.
I'm trying to make a habit of reporting out on AMSD. That was, I think, is helpful for everyone to hear.
Which stands for?
Oh, the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, which has all 41 public school districts in the metro, plus, I think it's 39 metro districts, plus St. Cloud and Rochester, plus the intermediates, and the integration districts as well. So I think there's like 47 members. And Aston and I attend those board meetings regularly. So this last one they have an annual presentation by Bill Morris of Morris Leatherman, the survey company that I know we have used, St. Louis Park has used. And they do an annual poll for AMSD of metro residents and some from St. Cloud and Rochester, just make up a survey of education issues. And he was like, this was last Friday, and he said this information is so fresh. It was from September 1st through 5th, and we heard it on Friday. So it was really, really new information. All of his slides are on the AMSC website if you're interested in looking at some of this data. I just thought the one top piece was that education was the #1 state issue for the most respondents. So 33% of respondents said that education was their #1 issue, which was way up over the past 3 or 4 years. I think it said in 2016 only 17% had indicated that education was their #1, and other things had been much higher than that. But education right now, #1 state issue for 33% of respondents in the metro and St. Cloud and Rochester. So if you're interested in more from AMSD, the registration is now open for their policy conference, which is going to be in November, Wednesday, November 13th, from 12:30 to 4:30 p.m. The theme of the conference is Building Community Bridges, and the keynote speaker is Dr. Marguerite Rosa from Georgetown University, a speaker on effectively communicating complex education finance issues to your community, which I think we all could use more of. And in addition, there's going to be a presentation from Minneapolis Public Schools on their parent engagement initiative, which was recently written up in Education Week. So board members and I think cabinet members welcome to join that conference in November.
Thank you, Anne Mary.
I have a couple of save the dates for the community. The first is we do not have a location yet, I don't think, but I wanted to give people the heads up as soon as possible that Monday, October 21st, we will have a school board listening session. And Casey and I will be in attendance, and hopefully Karen Waters will be there too. So It will be in the evening, and so we will put that on the district's website, and we'll share it on Facebook, and there's a variety of other places we can about time and location. But please feel free to come to that if you want to be able to talk to us a little bit more. As Chair Gores has said many times, we do have open forum where community members have an opportunity to come and share some thoughts with us, but that's not really a good opportunity for us to engage in a conversation about some of these issues. The listening sessions are the best place to do that. You're obviously free to get in touch with us via email or phone otherwise. And then also, and I hope there's a couple people here who can make sure I'm right, October 1st is the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum for school board candidates. As many people know, we do have a school board election. I am very happy to say that I am not on the ballot this year. It's still a little fresh. But we do have 4 seats open this year, and a couple of our colleagues on the board now are seeking re-election, as well as 6 other members of the community. So I found when I was in the process that the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum is always an excellent opportunity to really learn more about the candidates, and you can attend that in person, or I believe that it's televised live. Is that right? It is live, and then you have an opportunity to view it on YouTube after the fact. But if you come in person, you have the opportunity to submit questions to the candidates as well. So please put those on your calendar.
Mary, what was the date of the League of Women Voters Forum again, and where is that located, and what's the time?
Oh my gosh, you're so smart. Thank you. It was October 1st. I really talk about bearing the lead. October 1st at City Hall, 7 o'clock.
And then on that topic, and this is news to the candidates because we haven't gotten the word out yet because we've just made the decisions today, but in terms of time and place and date and time. But on September 26th, 9/26, from 5:30 to 7 at Lenox, all the candidates for school board are invited to Lenox for a kind of a meet and greet and learn about the school district and how it, and the role of the board and some of the work of the district from the cabinet, the superintendent, and me. So if anybody wants to come up and come to that, and it's good because it's before the forum, so hey, bonuses. Anyone else? I just want to say what a great week we had last week, getting back to school. I want to thank everybody on the cabinet and the superintendent and all the staff who did all the work over the summer to get us ready for that, because it doesn't just happen. And so we're very grateful to everything you've done to get us a great kickoff to a good year. So thanks, everybody. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So
Moved by Karen. Is there a second? Seconded by Ann. All in favor? Aye. We are adjourned.